It's been a week since the Genshin card game has been launched, and it has been fun. We've even gotten a week where we got to test out different decks, had a quick tournament, and now with all the decks kind of lined up right now, I'm going to show you a very simple and easy to build deck, and also easy to run. So if you're new to card games, or even if you just don't really feel to PvP and just want to clear through the PvE, then this is the deck for you. So this is the deck. This is Ganyu SC, Ganyu Superconduct, and as the name suggests, the game plan is pretty simple. We want to beat our opponent with as much Superconduct as possible. Now for those that can't recall, Superconduct deals +1 damage to the active character and +1 piercing damage to the standby characters. This piercing damage cannot be blocked and cannot be buffed. So the game plan is pretty simple for these three. You just have to get your burst as much as possible, get your summons out as much as possible, and win the game. Now, I've chosen this deck as an easy to build and easy to pilot because, number one, it's actually easy to build since Fischl is already free from the tutorial. Then we have Ganyu and Keqing, which you just have to invite. Then you have the rest of the cards of the deck, which are actually pretty significantly cheaper versus all the rest of the cards. So I'm gonna flash on the screen right now the total cost for this deck. Feel free to pause the video if you want to go through the entire total. But let's move on to the actual deck itself. Since we said that we want to do as much burst as possible with Ganyu, Keqing, and Fischl, we run copies of Iron Tongue Tian, Star Signs, and even Calx Arts to increase our energy. And since we have double Electro, we could run the Mental Resonance High Voltage, which actually is really beneficial for our deck. And then we run a copy of Chang the Ninth, since we deal a lot of piercing damage to just gain us more cards. Then we run the standard Liben and extra dice fixers, dice adders. And then we run a copy of Exile Circlet, which helps us give more energy to our three characters to consistently burst. Then we run a copy of the Divine Relics installation to just swap out this Divine Exile Circlet around. One quick knit to just add to the usages of our summons, and then running a usual copy of Ito and usual copy of Noel. Then we run a copy of Lotus Flower Crisp to keep our characters alive, and Northern Smoked Chicken to just take advantage of that Keqing Electro infusion. Now going back to the game plan of Ganyu SC, or more so how to play the deck itself, we start off usually with Fischl. As much as possible, we want Oz out at all times so he can continuously deal electro damage at our opponent. For Ganyu and Ganyu's burst to deal cryo later. And then as much as possible, after performing your skill with Fischl and once Oz is out, you want to switch to Ganyu and apply as much cryo as you can, with either using the skill to increase your defenses or speeding things up to quickly get to her burst using the cards mentioned before. Then from there, once you have Sacred Cryo Pearl and Oz up, you could simply switch to Keqing to deal as much damage using her skill and her Electro-infused normals through Lightning Stiletto. And even at some point in time, if you can get the Keqing burst off, it deals a great 4 damage and 3 piercing damage to the standby characters. So juggle with these 3 until you can cleave your opponent down and simply win the game. Now let's go through the pros and cons of the deck. So as mentioned earlier, as one of the pros, this is actually easy to create. And then second, it's actually easy to pilot since the goal is to just superconduct as much as possible. You don't really have to pay as much attention to your opponent at what they're doing. All you have to make sure is that your characters are alive and that you continue to cast summons. Next, it's actually very easy for PvE since cleave damage will make NPC fights end earlier. Since most of the NPCs will just be running Hilichurls, Abyss Mages, Nobushis, and alike, there'll just be a bunch of 4 HP to 6 HP opponents. Just great in number. So as much as possible, you just want to kill them all in one swoop. Which is why this deck is great for PvE, especially for clearing, for all the content if you just want to run all the Primo Gems. Now, for the cons of this deck, it's more on the PvP side. This deck may be solid for the ladder, but it is slow versus decks such as Ayaka OTK and maybe even Kale Catalyze. So these decks has no way to disrupt the opposing team to prepare their combo to strike you down. So this deck basically has no way to disrupt the opponent and no way to stop their game plan. All you can do is just race in terms of damage and hope for the best that you could win the games out. But nonetheless, I think this deck can still stand on its own. But moving back to that, in terms of PvP, I did say earlier there is a Kale Catalyze deck. The card needed for this is actually just Kale, Kiching, and Fischl, and then some few other cards that you'll add along. So you could actually upgrade this deck for PvP should you wish, since you already have the base starting materials. So it'll be great as you'll now have 2 decks in your option, which is why I suggest this as the starter deck. Alright, that's it for the entire deck actually. I really think that this is a great starter deck if you're new to TCG or if you just want to clear PvE content or if you're really interested in the Genshin TCG, as the deck basically helps you out with a great starter deck to clear all PvE while at the same time be upgradable where you can add Kale into the list to be able to fight other opponents in the ladder. But what do you guys think? Feel free to leave comments and questions down in the comment section below. Leave a like at the video if you like this, and feel free to subscribe for more GCG content. Alright, that's it for now. See ya!